25 years of impactful journalism. Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to the Midday News. This bulletin is coming to you live from the Joy 99.7 FM studios here in Kokomlemle at digital address GA0993341. Also live on Love 99.5 FM in Kumasi, affiliates across the country including Radio Wa in Wa, Kekeli Radio in Ho, and ATL FM in Cape Coast. We're live around the world at myjoyonline.com. In this edition, NPP manifesto promises Ghana's mixed reactions as some policies are lauded whilst others raise doubt. We'll bring you highlights of the manifesto plus responses.
You just don't invest in infrastructure for the purposes of doing so.
The manifesto did not do much about, expenditure control.
What I think the government should have thought of should have been to fully implement the Rent Act.
Also, we'll hear from senior lecturer at the University of Ghana who says government's proposal to build a new airport in the central region does not make economic sense.
For you to decide and say, hey, I'm going to put up airport at Cape Coast. For me, I don't think it will make any economic sense. I don't foresee the financial benefit.
Also in this edition, NDC punches holes in government's achievement in infrastructure, describing the newly launched delivery tracker website as full of stolen mahama and ghost projects.
The presentation Ghanaians were fed with by the failed economic messiah turned misadigitization lacked candor and was full of deliberate distortions of facts, calculated to deceive the unsuspecting public.
Also, pressure mounts on government to come clean on beneficial owners in controversial Japan mineral royalties agreement. We'll hear from former President Mahama, who is vowing not to accept the agreement if re-elected.
Japan is a very shady deal, and I'm saying if I become president, I will not respect that agreement. It is a theft of Ghanaians' royalties. Let them invest it in a company that is transparent. We can see the beneficial owners.
We have details and in sports.
We'll bring you details on the death of young Ghanaian boxer John Comey, who passed away over the weekend after complaining of body pains.
And radio gets results. The 80-year-old leper who was once an outcast in her community set to move into a newly built house by the Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, after joining her story.
On behalf of the granddaughter and the son, she wishes to thank everybody for the donation. She never thought of them, but she has seen that somebody somewhere is equally thinking of her.
We have that and more here on the Midday News with me, Emefa Apawu. Please stay for details. And it certainly has been a packed weekend full of political activities, and we'll unpack it all. But let's begin with the governing NPP, whose newly launched manifesto has got many talking. The party has in its manifesto pledged to develop the nation, but concerns are already emerging regarding the availability of funds for big ticket projects like a new harbour and an airport for the central regional town of Cape Coast. Now, the manifesto themed leadership of service, protecting our progress, transforming Ghana for all, was launched in Cape Coast over the weekend. Now, for the following news desk report brings you highlights of that document.
In 216 pages, the MPP tells the story of how it intends to do more for Ghanaians as it touted its achievements, particularly in the economic and energy sectors over the last 3.5 years. The party, which has been riding on the back of the success of its flagship free SHS policy, is promising to provide wireless internet connection at all senior high schools, universities, and colleges of education across the country.
We will also complete the provision of free Wi-Fi at all senior secondary schools and public tertiary institutions. The process has started. A contract has already been awarded.
Major infrastructure pledges in the document include a new harbour and an airport to be built in Cape Coast.
For the people of Cape Coast, I have good news for you. We are building a new harbour in Cape Coast and a new airport in Cape Coast. It is very critical that we do that, and it makes a lot of sense in Cape Coast.
2 new psychiatric hospitals will be constructed, with 111 district and regional hospitals to be built across Ghana.
We have Agenda 111, which used to be Agenda 88. We're going to build district hospitals wherever they are none, 102 in all, 2 additional psychiatric hospitals.
On governance, the MPP makes a commitment to its pledge of making district chief executives elected on partisan basis. This pledge was abandoned by the government following concerns by civil society organizations. The party says it will continue to finance anti-corruption agencies to deliver on their mandate. In the housing sector, the MPP is promising to set up a national rental assistance scheme in collaboration with the private sector.
If you have a job and we can deduct regularly from your income under this scheme, the National Rent Assistance Scheme will give you a loan to pay your rent allowance. We are paying this not to you but to the landlord, and then we will deduct monthly as you would normally pay.
The MPP is further pledging to restructure the student loan scheme.
We are concerned also about tertiary education. All tertiary students will now be able to get the option to obtain a student loan without the requirement of a guarantor.
In the end, the governing party's message is clear. It has already achieved a lot and is now counting on Ghanaians to re-elect them to do more.
We should vote for more for Nana so that he will provide the leadership of service to transform Ghana for all.
And that's highlights, or we've just got you highlights of the NPP's manifesto launch and contents of that document. But some analysts say the document fails to show how revenue will be raised to achieve the project. First, listen to senior lecturer in finance at the University of Ghana, Dr. Lord Mensah.
You could see that in the preparedness to, lower the fiscal space. The manifesto did not do much about, expenditure control. Expenditure control. All the efforts with the digitization were being on, revenue collection and revenue collection. And if the revenue collection is not well, integrated, and possibly looking at how we are fusing, national identification to revenue collection, for me, I think we'll have a long way to go. And so we have to be careful how we go about this thing.
Now, President of the National Association of Graduate Teachers, Angel Kabonu, says the promise by the NPP to provide all schools with free Wi-Fi is commendable. Now, he wants government to ensure its policies are sustainable. He spoke on Beyond the Lockdown last night.
Every policy of government should be economically sustainable so that it will not just be as a threshold of promise, but it will be promised that will be functional and that would stand the test of time.
Now, Samuel Sego, who is president of the Graduate Students Association of Ghana, is concerned that the decision to scrap the guarantor system with the students' loan will make it difficult for the fund to recoup dispersed funds.
The students' loan of the Secretariat is struggling to recoup the already given out loans. Okay. And they have that leverage of relying on the guarantor's pension to get at least certain amount back. So if you remove the issue of guarantors, then we are creating a problem for the institution of SLTS.
Now, Adam Senano, the Citizens Movement Against Corruption, is not impressed about provisions in the manifesto to help fight corruption.
It's about the sanctions of our processes to set the right precedent and finding people culpable so that it sends the right message. And so the emphasis in the manifesto would not appear to be where we would have wanted to see it.
Now, Sadem Senano of the Citizens Movement Against Corruption, he spoke on Beyond the Lockdown last night. Now, the Ghanaian public has been reacting to the content of the NPP's manifesto, particularly in the areas of rent control and student loan administration. Now, they say an enforcement of the existing rent law is a better option than introducing a new policy which will swallow prospective beneficiaries in debt.
What I think the government should have thought of should have been to fully implement the Rent Act that allows for people to pay just 6 months of rent in advance.
But when it comes to sports, what they said they would do in 2016, what they did over the course of the effort that we gave them was not really pleasant. And then you come back to ask us for the mandate to do something else in sports after you've not even finished what you've access to. It shows that the NPP government has little or no respect for sports.
The government promised to build national theatres across the 10 regions at that time. And as of now, we don't know where the theaters are even. I was expecting them to revamp some of the old existing ones which has already been there.
Every region should at least have an airport. It all adds up to the infrastructural development of our country. But then first things first, is it a priority is the question we should be asking.
You heard there some Ghanaians on the streets of Accra reacting to the NPP's manifesto. We're head to Kumasi now, especially on the rent policy. My colleague Erastus Asari-Donko has been engaging some residents on this issue.
But how many people have complained to the government that it's too much and therefore they can't get accommodation? People get accommodation all right, isn't it? Because it's not saying that they shouldn't pay advance. You give them the money to pay the advance. So whether they get it from someone or they get it from themselves, doesn't matter. All matters is that they fulfill the obligation of payment.
Ebi kwa yenzi ni nyaba ya juma ya fumo juma. Nasi ebesi yetimi haidi. Yetimi trebi ni yedi. Ya kakra di tia. Ngani bi anka ye pa. Na yenzo ami elo ami di akotia. Omo di akotia na ye waste ni dia. Meni omo nya adin.
Some residents of Kumasi will go on the phone line now. Lecturer at the Kumasi Technical University, Dr. Smart Sapong, says inadequate data on Ghana's housing rental system is likely to hamper the implementation of the NPP's National Rent Assistance Scheme. He joins us on the line. We're grateful for your time here on the Midday News. So should we be able to gather this data that you talk about, which will hamper the implementation? Will our problems be solved? Can we then go ahead with this proposed policy?
Very well. Good afternoon, Emefa, and good afternoon to our chairs listeners. My concern has been with the lack of reliance on data in such proposals and the implementations of them thereof. So we are in a country where we lack the basic information about rentable apartments, rentable houses, who are the landlords. Landlords are not properly registered or identified. I remember somewhere last year, a section of some NAPCO guys were asked to do this exercise, register residents, residential facilities and apartments and their landlords thereof. We've not been told the outcome of that exercise. Cities are still unregulated. People put up buildings meant for other purposes, convert them to residential facilities, and that is to the core of the problem. Data, the absence of data is to the core of the problem.
So this policy for you without the data cannot work?
Seriously, it may have to start with the data. So government should perhaps start from now or maybe next year with the data.
Okay.
Let's have all landlords properly captured and then the implementation thereof, because some tenants are willing to help the law work.
We're grateful for your time. That's Dr. Smart Sapong. He's a lecturer at the Kumasi Technical University. A senior lecturer at the University of Ghana Business School says the new Patriotic Party's manifesto promise to build an airport in the central region does not make economic sense. According to Dr. Lord Mensah, traveling on the road from Accra or Takoradi to Cape Coast will be financially beneficial than using a flight. We'll hear from him, but first here is Dr. Mahmoud Baumia announcing at the manifesto launch over the weekend that a new airport will be built in Kumasi, a Cape Coast in its second term.
We'll accelerate our investments in roads, railways and ports. And for the people of Cape Coast, I have good news for you. We are building a new harbor in Cape Coast and a new airport in Cape Coast. It is very critical that we do that, and it makes a lot of sense in Cape Coast.
Now, just a day before the promise found its way into the manifesto, President Akufo-Addo said on ATL FM, a critical need assessment must be carried out first before an airport can be constructed in the central regional capital of Cape Coast.
Well, the studies are...
Go ahead. You don't see the need of an airport?
I don't see the need. These things the response of the government should not just be people saying we need an airport. The response of the government should be the matter has been thoroughly examined and the need has been established. That is the process that the Ministry of Aviation is going through. It's doing the same with Koforidua from the region from which I come, which is also another regional location which is very near Accra, another an hour and a half, to be able to decide for ourselves whether in fact the need for the airport can be justified when you have Accra, you have Kumasi, you have Tamale, you have Takrady, whether on the coast with Accra's presence was a need for an additional airport.
President Akufo-Addo in that interview on ATL FM on Friday. Now, on Beyond the Lockdown yesterday, I engaged the communications director and a member of the manifesto committee of the NPP, Yaobuabi Nsamoah, and he says that the president wasn't misinformed, adding that he didn't want to give the details of what the manifesto was until the launch on Saturday.
An airport for Cape Coast came up. We know that the people went on a demonstration in March thereabouts on a no airport, no vote. Spree. That question came up, and the president mentioned that they would have to justify why there's a need for an airport in Cape Coast. Then on Saturday, during a manifesto launch, on page 160, I've had the pains to go through it. That is there that you're going to get an airport, not just that, a harbour also for Cape Coast. So how is it that the president, during that interview, is it that he didn't know that is contained in your manifesto? Who misinformed the president? You are a member of the committee.
No, the president is not misinformed. The interesting thing is that for several months, everybody is trying to get everything in the manifesto from the people working on the manifesto. Indeed, I had major difficulties from Thursday to Saturday, keeping it to myself, particularly on Friday. So it is not surprising the way the president spoke, because the last thing...
So you're saying it was kept away from the president?
It was kept away from the public. The manifesto content was kept away from the public.
But it appears it was kept away from the president also, because he would have known that.
You can say appears. The president didn't have to disclose what he knew on that day.
Communications Director of the NPP, Yaobuabi Nsamoah. But speaking on the AM show with Roland Walker, the senior lecturer, Dr. Lord Mensah, disagreed, describing the promise as not thoughtful.
There's a reason why, economic reason why, if you travel on the road from Accra without much delay, all the way to Cape Coast, you could see that there could be some spillovers of economic activities on the highway. Now, if you develop this road, instead of allowing people to fly within 20 minutes or within 30 minutes to Cape Coast, you realize that during the feasibility studies, where you give alternatives for such investment, you will come to understand that traveling on the road will be more beneficial than looking at just, flying.
Now, some residents in the central region doubt the governing NPP will fulfill its promise to build an airport and harbour in the capital. Some callers on the Super Morning Show have been sharing their views on this promise.
It's a pure cosmetic. They still not happy. At this time around, the funds will be where it was ready to send. I don't think they will have to vote for the NPP this time around again.
Airport in Cape Coast, instead of finalizing the rules, the bad rules in Cape Coast, you are saying that you are going to get on both airports in Cape Coast. It is not the defeatist approach. We must hold them by their boss. For whatever they promise, we must hold them by their boss.
Some callers into the Super Morning Show today. So was the choice of Cape Coast a deliberate one? Deputy head of our political desk, Winston Amoah, joins me in studio with some analysis. So Winston, why the choice of Cape Coast or the Central Region as venue for the manifesto launch first off?
Well, so if you look at the 2020 registration exercise, the Central Region now, following the creation of new regions, is the fourth highest region when it comes to registered voters, with 1,556,000 people. Now, if you look at the NPP's margin of victory in the 2016 election, it polled 496,668, and then the NDC polled 405,262. That's a margin of 91,000. But if you also look at the number of registered voters, now the difference in there is 150,000 new registered voters. What it means is that this number can actually sway in the, for the NDC and cause the NPP to lose the Central Region. Mind you, you now have 3 swing regions: Western, Central, Greater Accra, with the Bono East being an NDC stronghold now, and also the Western North being an NDC stronghold, with Bono and Ahafo being NPP stronghold. So the emphasis is on Central region because it holds the key to election 2020. And out of the 19 constituencies that the NPP has now, as in the seats they have, about 17 of them could swing.
Okay, thank you very much. That's Winston Amwa. He's the deputy head of our political desk here at Joy News. Now let's take a quick wrap on the NPP's manifesto launch with one of the highlights of the event: President Akufo-Addo throwing jabs at his predecessor and NDC flag bearer John Dramani Mahama.
It has been said by the NDC presidential candidate that NPP policies lack sense. If running an emerging oil economy into the arms of the IMF because of indiscipline in the management of the public finances is sense, I'm happy that the NPP has another concept of sense. We have no reason to believe the NDC presidential candidate's newly proclaimed conversion to free SH and free TVET. Then the former president said he would review it, and now we hear him say it has come to stay. Excellency, please try another one.
That's President Akufo-Addo. Now let's turn our attention on the NDC, because days after Vice President Mahama's presentation, Bawumia's presentation on achievements by government, especially in the area of infrastructure, the debate is far from over. Today, the NDC at a press conference has been outlining what it claims are total falsehoods contained in the Vice President delivery and content in the newly launched delivery tracker by government. Listen to the Communications Director of the NDC, Sami Jenfi.
We have no qualms about the decision of the Akufo-Addo government to showcase what they describe as achievements. However, the presentation Ghanaians were fed with by the failed economic messiah turned Mr. Digitization, who has earned the dubious reputation of engaging in the worst kind of deception and political chicanery, Dr. Bawumia lacked candor and was full of deliberate distortions of facts, calculated to deceive the unsuspecting public. The whole presentation by Dr. Bawumia was a cocktail of blatant falsehoods, ghost projects, stolen projects, and shockingly mediocre accomplishments, which will not pass for the achievements of a rural assemblyman, let alone a government that has had access to an unprecedented resource envelope of over 370 billion in the last 3.5 years.
NDC's Communications Director, Sami Jenfi. We have more on this in our subsequent bulletins. And from the camp of the NDC, we go to the camp of the All People's Congress, APC. And the party is holding its second National Delegates Congress to elect national executives and presidential candidates to lead them into the December polls. Founder and leader of the party, Hassan Ayariga, is suspected to be acclaimed as the flag bearer of the party. My colleague PSA Nanaya Osafo joins us on the line. PSA, bring us up to speed on what's happening where you are.
Yes, at the moment, Emefa, the flag bearer, to be acclaimed, Hassan Ayariga entered the venue here less than 20 minutes ago amidst drumming, excitement, and jubilation from most of the participants here. Some 200 carefully spaced for social distancing protocols, and yet they are now beginning the program. But in fact, before that, I've been speaking to the National Women's Organizer, who tells me that their plans will be heavy on social interventions.
And that's my colleague PSA Nanaya Osafo from the camp of the APC. Well, the CPP also says, choose us and help us create a new political dynamic in the country. That's the plea to Ghanaians by the Convention People's Party, which has just elected new officers to steer the party into the 2020 general elections. And top one of them is the new executive. It includes a former PURC Director of Public Affairs, Nanaya Achimpim Jantwa. And that's it for election headquarters here on the Midday News. I would take some more stories quickly when we return from the break, but our top on this, we've been bringing you a wrap in terms of mixed reactions as some policies of the NPP manifesto is attracting mixed reactions. And then also still to come, pressure mounts on government to come clean on beneficial owners in controversial Ejapa mineral royalties agreement. We'll hear from former President Mahama, who is vowing not to accept the agreement if re-elected.
It's a very shady deal, and I'm saying if I become president, I will not respect that agreement. It is a theft of Ghanaians' royalties. Let them invest it in a company that is transparent. We can see the beneficial owners.
And radio gets results. The 80-year-old leper who was once an outcast in her community is set to move into new house built by Vice President Baumia after joining us at her story.
On behalf of the granddaughter and the son, she wishes to thank everybody for the donation. She never thought of them, but she has seen that somebody somewhere is equally thinking of them.
Thanks for staying with us. Let's do sports now. Huntsman Sando, he has the latest.
Tragic, Emefa, over the weekend. Ghana's amateur boxing team lost a member, young John Comey, and passed away, we understand, after complaining of body pains. Like I said, he was part of the Black Bombers team, and he was hoping to compete for Ghana at the upcoming Olympic Games next year. My colleague Nathaniel Ato has more in the following report.
Sad indeed. I chanced on a video which showed his lifeless body being sealed off in a body bag on the hospital bed where he passed on. While this was done, his close family members wept profusely in the background. John Comey was seen as one of the very big prospects to infiltrate the system and win major silverware for Ghana in multi-sport events, not only locally but also internationally. John Comey, who was a featherweight, fought out of the Black Panthers gym here in Accra and was looking forward to taking part in the big qualifiers for the next Olympic Games to probably win another set of silverware for Ghana.
Was some bad news there for the Black Bombers team.
Thank you very much, Hans. Now pressure is mounting on the Akufo-Addo administration to come clean on the beneficial owners in the controversial Ejapa mineral royalties agreement. The deal has come under criticism by the minority as well as some civil society groups who claim government is mortgaging the country's gold royalties to private investors. Although government has denied the claims, many like the CDD, fellow in law and justice Professor Stephen Asare continue to raise questions. Former President Mahama says he will not respect the agreement if he's re-elected.
It's a very shady deal, and I'm saying if I become president, I will not respect that agreement. It is a theft of Ghanaians, royalties, and it is made to benefit just a few people. Ghanaians cannot accept this. We won't accept that agreement. We do not accept that government of Ghana should invest our royalties in an offshore tax haven. Let them invest it in a company that is transparent. We can see the beneficial owners of who the company are, and in the best case scenario, use a government of Ghana VEC or Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund. It's supposed to be our sovereign wealth fund. If you assign our gold royalties to it, the Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund can raise those same monies that you want.
That's former President John Mahama. Now, after years of drinking water from a muddy stream, residents of the Eastern Regional Community of Domiabra are hailing Promasido Ghana Limited, producers of cowbell, for their new source of drinking water. The new borehole, built by the beverage maker, is part of 20 they are building nationwide to commemorate their 20th anniversary in business. The borehole is also expected to serve the only clinic in the community. Here's a report from my colleague Justice Beidu.
Brownish and covered by weeds. For many years, this has been the source of drinking water for the people of Domiabra here in the Eastern region.
In the dry season, the river dries up, and when it rains too, it is full of filth.
We are happy to come here to Domiabra today and to invest in this community, giving back to the people who support us.
I'm grateful to Cowbell for intervening in my village and helping us with water. We ask God to bless Cowbell.
And that's Justice Bedu's report. And radio today indeed gets results. And this has been the hallmark of your superstation, Joy 99.7 FM. Hope you remember Dari Poga, the 80-year-old woman with leprosy, featured in Seth Kwame Boateng's With the Skins documentary. The good news is that she will, in the next few days, move into her new home, built for her by the Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. The house, built in a record time of 7 weeks, is ready. Upper West correspondent Rafiq Salam has more.
The biblical phrase, "There is time for everything," has really manifested in the life of Darpo, a leprosy-stricken woman believed to be in her 80s. Any heavy storm could collapse the dilapidated mass structure she slept in on her. Darpo's story touched the hearts of many, including the Vice President, Dr. Alhaji Mahmoud Bawumia, who intervened without delay. 7 weeks after, the two-bedroom house with hall, kitchen, toilet, and bath is ready and has been painted. Upper West Regional Minister Dr. Hafiz bin Sali has been supervising the construction.
We are also about finishing it, getting beds and furniture for the lady.
And radio indeed gets results. Many thanks to the Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, for making life easy for this 80-year-old leper, Dari Poga. And that's it for the midday news here on Joy 99.7 FM. There's more news when you log on to myjoyonline.com. I'll be right back with Living Word with Dr. Menso Tabil.